All right, everybody, welcome to the Regretful Pirates coming to you live from Miami. Not Miami, Florida, but Yamaha. Anyways, I'd like to talk about central filtration chemical poisoning. The way these fish have been treated for 40, 50 years. It's been done the same way for as long as I can remember. There's a fundamental flaw. They mix all the fish together and they use all these chemicals, and what doesn't die from the treatment ends up dying later on. The chemicals get in their gills and they burn their gills and they get in their kidney and liver, and later on they die. The point is to get them through the sale. If they can move the cost of the deaths onto the next person in the supply chain, then it's not no longer their problem. I'd like to read a quarantine procedure. It was somewhere back, I don't know, 2009, somewhere around there, when I owned a pet store. I actually got a letter from them in the mail saying how they treated their stuff, and they was very proud of it. Now I've been to this wholesaler, and it's just some tubs and carports and a bunch of crap running with the ocean out back. It's a real crap hole, and they claim to be one of the best people in the world. They supply all the big public aquariums and yada yada yada. Basically, it's just a couple of dudes that's grandfathered into pillaging the ocean for massive, massive profits. Anyways, I'm going to read these quarantine procedures, and we're going to go over this. Maybe by the end of it, we'll understand why these fish are actually dying and why they need replaced all the time, and why they don't have the rights, why we can do this to them, because fish don't have rights like the rest of the animals. You can dump whatever you want on them. There's no animal cruelty laws. They all say except fish. Well, included in except fish is seahorses and shrimps and crabs and little invertebrates and corals and, I mean, tons of other life that can be just treated any old way. Now, they say that these experts are taught through their degrees from their professors that they learn from to use all these chemicals and antibiotics and various things, because that's what we've done for 40 years. But you know what? It hasn't worked for 40 years. It didn't work then. It doesn't work now. It's just some old foolish thing that they've been passing down from degree in old school to degree in old school. And then these experts say, oh, no, this is what we do. Blah, blah, blah. Well, it doesn't work. If it's working so good, if you people are in charge of all this, then why is all the life dying in the ocean? Why is it not working then, if you guys are so good at this stuff? Anyways, let's go through this. It starts off by all fish that come in from outside sources to your store, meaning pet stores, need some type of quarantine procedures before they are added to your inventory. All of the public aquariums that we supply quarantine their fish in copper sulfate at 0.20 to 0.30 ppm parts per million, use antibiotics as needed, and apply anti-parasitic medications such as formalin baths, which is formaldehyde, it's a Class B carcinogen, and praziquantel for worms, tubularians, and flukes. Typically, they do this for a period of at least 30 days before the fish go on exhibit. Now, if the parasites and the bacteria infections don't get them, the chemicals will. They don't last. They have to replace these fish, but they got a month out of them. The point is, if they can get them a few weeks, just even a couple weeks, to pass that death on to the next person. You see, when they start with, say, 10 fish, you lose a couple at the collector, a couple at the wholesaler, a couple at the pet store. There's even maybe a couple other places in between there. So by the time the hobbyist gets one, there was only one or two left out of the original 10. And then that one dies. Oh, and wait, let me sell you another bottle of snake oil. You need a bottle of this. You need a better filter. You need a protein skimmer. You need a better light. You need some other junk under the sun to fix what we've broken. It's a scam. They purposely, I don't know if it's purposely, but just the fundamental flaw of doing it wrong for so long, they send these fish, the fish come in healthy from the ocean, except for a couple of them. And then by the time they run through their make them sick systems, they all go out to die. And so they can sell more next month or more junk to try to keep them alive. People end up chasing this thing. They want it so bad. People get addicted to it. They got saltwater fever. They got to have these things in tanks in their captivity. And all they're doing is buying dead fish swimming. And the reason why is because all these so-called experts that brag about what they do are fundamentally making them sick and then killing them with their chemicals. But that's the way it's been done, so that's what we teach. They say parasites are part of the real world. Yeah, out in the wild, there's a couple parasites here and there, but they pull up to a cleaning station and they get the parasites ate off. Or the parasite falls off and it hatches and maybe it gets on something else and maybe it don't. The point is the fish can swim away, but when it's in a closed system, that one spot that you see on a fish will fall off and hatch into 200 or 300 new little babies that'll get right back on the fish. And it'll get worse and worse and worse until the fish just succumbs to either the life being sucked out of it or they get cloudy eye or some other secondary bacteria infection, because usually the copper will cause the fish to get cloudy eye, or the formaldehyde. It actually harms the fish more than the parasite does, but they don't know what else to do. Well, they could actually fix this problem at the supplier. The wholesaler that I'm talking about has a saltwater well. It pumps the water out of the ground basically, and it goes in through their systems. They dump all this stuff in here, and it pours out back when it's done, when they're done with it. And it doesn't do any good. The fish are going to die anyways. So it just slows it down enough to get them out to pass the cost of the deaths onto somebody else. It's the system. It's the game. It's the name of the game. Anyways, I tried to tell these people, this wholesaler, that I found a cure for their problem. Their problem is they run all the water together and then they call it quarantine, even though all the water is running together and all the fish are in the same water. Even if they're in little tiny boxes, all the water's running together. So if one fish gets a parasite, they all get it. It's a ick growing system. They gets in their system, and then you put a healthy fish out of the ocean, it makes them sick. Well, to try to keep that down, they hit copper, formaldehyde. You heard all the junk. There's more than that. They use tons of stuff on these creatures. And instead of running all the fish together and all the water and nuking them and letting all the water run out back and destroying our environment, there's a really simple solution to their problem. Do not put them together in the same water, which is the true definition of quarantine. We've all learned what quarantine means here lately. And you can quarantine a couple people, a family together, or what have you. But true quarantine is apart, independent. When something is really sick, you don't mix it with the rest of the fish. Or if something is healthy, you don't mix it with all the other ones to get sick. It's a fundamental flaw. It's stupid. But if you would just take the water, let's say I had 5-gallon water jugs turned upside down, and I run the water out of their water coming from their saltwater well. And I put water into one of them 5-gallon jugs, and it fills up and it goes out or whatever. If I put a fish in there that has ick, it goes through a cycle where the white cyst that you see on the fish will fall off and hatch into new ones. Now here's the trick. If that fish was suspended in that tank and the bottom of the tank was actually funneled, so when the ick fell off the fish, or bacteria infection or whatever else could be on it, will come off the fish and it will fall out the bottom of the tank. And here's the trick. You don't have that water drop into another tank full of fish below. That's ridiculous. Why would you cure this fish to make other fish sick? What you do with that water is you pump it back into the ground at the other end of the building. So it can't hurt nothing. The water is filtered by 1 billion tons of sand. That's actually how they get the good water. You could have bad water coming out of the ground at one end of the building, flowing through these tanks, and then going back out to the other in the ground at the other end of the building. And not only would the fish not get sick, it would get cured, because it would be a disease curing station. It would be so simple. It would make so much sense. We just need to fundamentally change the way we do these old wrong things. They think they're doing right, but they're not. It's wrong. It's been wrong for 40, 50 years, and it will always be wrong. And until somebody takes a better look at this and is willing to admit that maybe they've been wrong about some of this stuff and all these chemicals and crap used on all these creatures just because you mix them all together is not the proper way to do things. It's truly independent quarantine. All you really got to do is keep the fish apart and take better care of them instead of mixing them all together and sending them out to die because they're cheap. Or they were cheap, but they're not now. There we go back to that survival of the most expensive. You keep the expensive fish apart and you nuke the rest of them all together because it's just an old, stupid way of doing things. Why do we not learn from our mistakes? Why do we not teach from our mistakes? That's what I'm trying to do. I spent 45 years killing fish and creatures in the ocean and figured out that what I was doing was wrong. And now I'm going to spend the rest of my life fighting against what I used to do. I'm going to try to right my wrongs by teaching from my mistakes because I don't want my grandkids to grow up and be what I was. I don't want them to kill fish for a living and then lie to the public about it. Oh, it must be something you did. Oh, you need a new bottle of junk. You need a more expensive something. It's a scam, people. Why do we fall for these old, wrong scams? It's time to grow up, rethink, and do something about it before it's too late for them and us.